The last time I talked about Dark Crisis Young Justice from Meghan Fitzmartin, I said people needed to be fired. Not just Meghan Fitzmartin. She's really a contractor. You can't really fire her. The contract can run out or whatever. But really the editorial staff that hired her, that approved the story and actually published this thing, their asses should clearly be on the line because this is absolute drivel. It's more the same. This week I won't concentrate so much on what Meghan Fitzmartin has to say to you and I, the actual people paying to read the comic book, because that has been what this series is about. Meghan Fitzmartin and her grievances against the fans who haven't just accepted every single change that she's made and been like, oh my goodness, Meghan Fitzmartin, she's the next fucking Alan Moore. She can do whatever she wants to these characters, rather than the honest feedback that she got that we don't think you understand the characters. We know that you don't like the characters, and we know that you don't like the universe. That's clear throughout this comic book issue. Her self-insert character is Cassie Sandsmark, and every time that she talks to Mickey Mitzelplick, who's the big bad in this comic book and created this universe where Connor Kent and Tim Drake and Bart Allen can relive their adventures in the 90s and never grow up and never do anything different, because apparently that's what we've been asking for. Although people have been clamoring, champing at the bit to have something new happen to these characters for decades now, but they constantly get regressed by DC Comics themselves anytime there is some type of character development. She's decided they needed character deconstruction, and she's using Cassie Sandsmark to basically excoriate the actual customers paying for the comic book. Absolutely ridiculous. That is absolutely in here if you read it. Today, I'm going to concentrate more on what she has to say about Peter David and his Young Justice run, which apparently she takes deep offense to. It almost reads like she read an entirely different Peter David Young Justice run than was actually published. She had issues across the board with the treatment of Cassie Sandsmark herself. In fact, all three heroes by the end have to get on their knees, apologize, and tell Cassie Sandsmark just how amazing she is. I don't know where this is coming from. Certainly, she has a problem with Peter David. Let's look at what happens in this issue, which is just as dog shit bad as the previous 5. Let's start with the impulse apology, which happens first. Cassie, I don't deserve that. Going back to that time, it brought back a lot of memories. We didn't always treat you great. I didn't treat you great. I was scared. I thought this new girl was going to change us, get in the way of a good thing. So I treated you like a third wheel. We all did. But you're more than the three of us put together. I hope this isn't the end of Young Justice, Cassie, because you make a great leader. What the fuck is he talking about? She was literally in Peter David's Young Justice run, like from the beginning. I don't think she was in issue number 1, but within the first handful of issues, she was in the run. And she was never treated as an afterthought or a third wheel. She got just as many opportunities to shine as Bart Allen, Connor Kent, and Tim Drake. I don't know what the hell he's even apologizing for. This literally never happened in that run. And of course, he has to put in there, you're more than the three of us put together, because none of them could ever compare to just how stunning and brave that Cassie Sandsmark is, just being a female hero in the DC Comics universe. And the other male heroes have to apologize to her for shit that never happened. Next up, we get Connor Kent. I thought she was so small when we first met, helpless. She proved she didn't need my help. She's strong, independent, daughter of Zeus. She didn't need me. She didn't need any of us. Instead, she chose us, and we let her down. All of us, including me. How did he let her down? When he fucking died? Is that what we're talking about now? I don't think Connor Kent was actually trying to die in the story. It was supposed to be a big, emphatic moment. In fact, this was an enormous obstacle for Cassie Sandsmark, Wonder Girl, to actually overcome. They sacrificed Connor Kent to elevate that character in the story. And that is exactly what happened. Certainly they elevated Tim Drake as well, and he had his own personal journey that ends up including Cassie Sandsmark. But Connor Kent literally fawning over how powerful Cassie Sandsmark is in the DC universe, it's laughable. This is the cringe-inducing writing that is allowed to go forward at DC Comics these days. I just wonder why nobody will buy a single fucking comic book from this publisher that doesn't have Batman on the title. Sure, there's a stinker here and there like Batman the Fortress, but for the most part, not even Ben Abernathy will let you take an enormous shit on Batman like he lets Meghan Fitzmartin take an enormous shit on Connor Kent and downplay the importance of his death in Young Justice and to Cassie Sandsmark herself. And of course, the very next page, he apologizes profusely. Please forgive me. I've done so many things wrong. I actually died. How could I have done that to you? What a selfish prick I must be. Before we get to the final apology, and it's absolutely coming from Tim Drake because he's got to apologize too, Everybody needs to apologize to Meghan Fitzmartin's avatar in the DC Comics universe, Cassie Sandsmark Wonder Girl. We do get what happens to Mr. Mxyzptlk. Writing-wise, this is probably even more embarrassing than all the apologies and downright stupid takes on Peter David's Young Justice run. When I knew I needed the strength of the others, I hid the trap in the Speed Force and waited until you were cocky enough to give us our powers back. You may be too smart to say your name backwards, but you can't escape physics. This is an atom split in two, responding to itself like an echo chamber. They literally defeat the villain, who's supposed to be all of us, because we don't like her writing and the changes that she's made to these characters in this run, which is absolutely putrid. And she put him in an echo chamber. Could you be more uncreative and more on the nose? The fact that DC Comics are willing to put their trademark, their heroes into a story like this, so poorly written, so unoriginal, so uninspired, that they trap the readers themselves in an echo chamber. That tells you just how fucking far DC Comics have fallen these days, and just why Meghan Fitzmartin should never be allowed to write a comic book at DC or Marvel ever again in her career. But you know, in 4 or 5 years, she'll still be destroying characters left and right, even if no one ever buys a single copy of any of her comic books, which appears to be the case right now. Now we got to get to this last apology, because Tim Drake, he might be gay now, but he'll never be as stunning and brave as Cassie Sandsmark just because she's a female in this story, and just because she's Meghan Fitzmartin's avatar in the story. I wanted to say, I'm sorry for how you and I, after Connor died, I didn't understand what I was feeling. You know, I do. Some things get clearer with age. We aren't the same kids we were back then. I don't know if we ever really were kids, but we'll make sure the next generation doesn't do what we did. Because Tim Drake is gay, he doesn't have to grovel. He does not have to get on his knees and beg for forgiveness and let Cassie Sandsmark know she is the baddest motherfucker in the entire DC universe, and that none of them would mean anything without her, and their powers combined could never even come close to being as powerful as she is on her own. He didn't have to do that because he is gay. He still had to bend the fucking knee to Meghan Fitzmartin and her avatar in the comic book series. I stand firm that Dark Crisis Young Justice is a crime against comic books. The fact that this was ever published is an embarrassment. It's a black eye on DC Comics, a part of their history that they'll never be able to get away from. When people are talking about this moment in DC Comics history, and they're talking about the 5 worst series or the 10 worst series in woke DC Comics, I will be shocked if this is not number 1. It's got to be right up there. Obviously, Tim Drake, Robin, it probably will be worse because it sounds like it's an ongoing and it's probably going to get more than 6 issues like this hunk of shit right here. But Meghan Fitzmartin has had her opportunities. She's written plenty of comic books by now, and every single time she's gotten the opportunity to put pen to paper, to write a competent story, she has failed absolutely spectacularly every single time. People need to be fired over the garbage stories that DC Comics are publishing these days. And this is an absolute example. Change needs to happen. I stand firm by this video. I said it all right here, and I concentrate more on how she disparages the actual customers themselves in this video. If you haven't seen this one, definitely check it out, because this is bullshit. If you don't see it here, there's also a link in the video description.